Hello and welcome to Friends of the Force. I am your host, Brad Whipple, and this is From a Certain Point of View, a series in which we celebrate these stories and experiences within the Star Wars fandom. On today's show, our guest has starred in Mayans MC, Scandal, and Criminal Minds. However, what she's best known for might have changed this past week within the Star Wars community for her work on Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order as the menacing Second Sister Inquisitor. So, without further ado, it's time to find out from a certain point of view what Star Wars means to actress Elizabeth Grullon.
You told me Vader betrayed and murdered my father.
Your father was seduced by the dark side of the Force. He ceased to be Anakin Skywalker and became Darth Vader. When that happened, the good man who was your father was destroyed. So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
A certain point of view?
Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
Well, here with me on From a Certain Point of View today, you will certainly recognize her from her most recent work on Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order as the villainous Second Sister Inquisitor. I am pleased and honored to welcome Elizabeth Grullon to the show. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining me today here on Friends of the Force.
Of course, yes. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yes, and you've been having a very, very exciting week. Now, I just finished up my playthrough of Jedi Fallen Order this weekend, and and you a couple days ago you took to your Instagram and announced that you are the second sister. So that's a pretty big secret to keep. I mean, what's that like to hold on to it this whole time and finally get to share this character with the world?
Yeah, it's super exciting. Gosh, how do I describe what it was like? You know, we were working on it from the end of last year, so the end of 2018. The franchise being what it is, it's definitely something to take seriously in terms of not sharing it in advance, not letting it slip, being careful, even having conversations in like a cafe or
Right.
like you never know. The fans are so passionate, and even before we started working on the game, I believe there were fans like on Reddit trying to find out more about Sister and who who is the voice and who's the actress, and we just want all of those surprise elements in place because we knew that as hard as it is to keep a secret, in general, I'm just a horrible liar, and like secret keeper, that's not my thing. But as hard as that is, like the fans would thank us later for the experience of being able to play the game and have those authentic moments of like shock and gasping, like, what? This is what she sounds like. This is what she looks like. Oh my goodness, it's a woman. Oh my goodness, it's a woman of color. How cool is that? Like, yeah, so we wanted to keep it. It was a labor of love for the fans.
I'm so glad I didn't know that you were playing her leading up to this game, because you're so right. It did really play into the complete surprise of many things, and we won't get into too many spoilers here on the show. We'll keep it very basic level, but
Yes.
Seeing what you look like as a character on there, and yeah, especially being a villain that's a woman. We haven't had too many of those in Star Wars recently. We have Asajj Ventress, we have Captain Phasma. So to have another one added into the mix, like how special is that for you to be a part of this ever growing club and maybe give way to more of those types of characters in the future?
Oh man, it's a very deep honor. I really take it seriously. Just representing for women, like we can be bad too, We don't
Yeah.
and making the character a human being, someone who's, flawed and maybe making some choices that are very, very dark, but those choices are coming from human places. It's not like I didn't want to play a caricature or a cartoon of a villain. And those decisions on my end, like, the depth to which I was going to go inside of my own being to bring, authenticity and complexity to this character it was really my love letter to women and to female relationships, which is a huge theme in this game. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm honored.
the relationship between you and Seer and Cal, this story packed so much of a punch for me and many other people. And I know there are so many of my friends out there going crazy over your character in particular, but I do actually see a lot of similarities, even with that of like Kylo Ren, of having this sense of betrayal towards a former master. And even at one point, Cal literally tells you you're a monster, just like Rey tells Kylo, and you reply, "I am what Seer made me." So you're totally embracing the evilness of this character and the sense of betrayal, and I love that. And I think the way that your character develops throughout the game really has an impact on everybody else. You know, it's not just a caricature, like you said. It is real and authentic and visceral, and it's just great.
Yeah, it's the fans' response, like the messages and comments that I've been seeing, a lot of them are in the zone of what we're talking about, of like, oh, I felt that, like,
Yeah.
whoa. And that was my intention. I just wanted to make something that was so real that people would be surprised when they were playing it, because they didn't expect to be moved in that way playing a video. Like I wanted people to be like, yikes. I can feel it in their bodies, So I'm so happy that so many of the fans are reflecting that back to me. It's just like I'm kind of giving myself a high five, like, yeah, I did that.
Some quotes that actually stuck out to me. I watched some of the behind the scenes making of the game, and you had talked a little bit about the character on there, and you said what her past is, it has taught her to love is to die and to kill is safety. I thought that was one of the most like powerful lines I've ever really heard describing a villain. You did say that, and it was like, it's like poetry. And reading on your website, you said you're a writer and a poet, so I'm like, dang, she does definitely have a way with words. It's awesome. And you said about the second sister, she's already lost everything, so she doesn't care about dying. There's recklessness. It's like, I'll jump on your ship and bring it down while I'm on it. I don't care.
Right.
So what helped you in preparation for this character, and what's the creative process like in kind of honing in on what you want the character to be versus maybe what Respawn's kind of letting you know what the character wants to be, or even Lucasfilm? What kind of goes into that process?
I have to say, like, the creative process with Respawn and Lucas and everybody, like with EA, with Tom, our director, it never felt like a debate, or like they were kind of telling me, or like I didn't feel that energy. It felt super organic and really quite effortless. I can honestly say it just unfolded in a very natural way. It was also interesting because I didn't know what I was auditioning for
Oh,
until
classic Star Wars.
right, exactly, like months later until I got the job. Even when I got the job, I remember my agent was like, "You got the job, woohoo!" And I was like, "Great!" And then I hung up the phone, and then I realized, what is this job? I still didn't know, even after I booked it. So there's a little bit of being blindfolded and walking forward and just trusting in as an actress in the audition process, but also I think as a human being, as a theme for life. It's like just one foot forward in front of the other.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I did read the character description, I had this distinct thought of like, oh, no wonder I got this job. This is me. This is me. I mean, obviously I'm not a murderer. Like, like this is the Star Wars version, but the character description in terms of the physicality, the way she moves, the way she speaks, I just really saw myself in it in a way that's kind of hard to explain, because I'm not a person who holds grudges, or I try to keep my energy as light as possible and stay out of those really dark places as best as I can. But the process of creating this character for me was like really examining those dark spaces that are within each of us, that none of us are exempt. Like, as you know, I'm an avid meditator, and
Mm-hmm.
one of my most influential teachers is the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, which is interesting because in Star Wars there's a lot of kind of Zen Buddhist themes, imagery, like
Right.
Yoda. We love that aspect of Star Wars. So there was like some crossover there. But Thich Nhat Hanh talks about how each of us has all the seeds of the universe within us, like the seeds of joy, the seeds of love, the seeds of hatred and greed. Like we all have everything. And then
Hmm.
the difference is which seeds are watered. That's the
Right.
difference. So with this character, it was like watering the other seeds.
Hmm.
And then like feel I love what you're reminding me of, like this recklessness that I was talking about, because actually there's a massive amount of freedom in that. Like the thing about being a quote unquote good person is like sometimes it can feel like kind of a chore. Like we're trying really hard to be like moral and good or something. But with a character like this, it's like what happens if you just let go of
Hmm.
all of that and you just like free to like roam and be the hunter and be a savage and be so it was, I mean, it was fun. Like I
Yeah.
don't know if you can tell, right? Like it was fun doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And even speaking on meditation, Cal literally meditates throughout the game and finds his,
Right.
elsewhere. He goes into this otherworldly place where he can, be at peace. And I think, going up against a character like you where there's some misinformation and those, like you said, those seeds are planted by her throughout the game to kind of pry him away from his relationship with Seer. And it's like you said, it's a matter of which of those seeds do you want to water. And that's up to
Right.
listeners to determine which of those seeds are. But yeah, this game is fantastic. And even I want to talk a little bit about the tone of your character. Another one of your quotes that really stuck out to me was you said she really enjoys wounding and hurting, so I want to hear that pleasure in her voice. And you
Whoa.
definitely
I'm
right.
like, I said good things.
and you like one line that really sticks out to me was when you ask Cal, this is right in the beginning of the game, you say, "Who is your master, Padawan? Someone I killed, perhaps?" And the way you said it, I was like, oh my god, wow, I really love this character already. It's been like 5 minutes.
Yay.
So in terms of actually like creating the voice of the character, like what really inspired you to have that certain dialect and that you did mention kind of felt so natural to you?
It's funny. Again, it was instant. From the moment I read the sides, and again, at the time I had no idea what I was auditioning for. I I really was completely in the dark. Um, but I read them and it just boom, the voice was in my head and it was a British accent. And it just felt like it was written in that way. I think because the character speaks in kind of an elevated, kind of somewhat poetic, somewhat flowery. Like she sometimes will go into like longer speeches. It just felt kind of regal and elevated. And that's literally, it was at the very first instinct on the very first read. That's just what came out of me.
Hmm.
And one of my inspirations for this character is one of my favorite performances I've seen ever on screen, which is Christoph Waltz in Inglorious Bastards.
Oh, that is a good one. Yeah.
And the thing that I love about him in that movie is, it literally is sickening to watch him in that movie because he's so calm.
Hmm.
Like he's deeply calm. And everybody else around him knows that their life is on the line, but he's very calm and he's also pretending as if the scene is really about milk or it's really about tea or whatever. But underneath, you kind of feel there's this like animal, like there's a felt sense of danger. And I just loved how he was able to sort of weave those two aspects just masterfully. It always stuck with me. So that was another aspect that I was bringing in vocally as well. Like
Hmm.
this kind of unthreatened, un unflustered quality.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the pleasure you talked about. Oh man, I love her so much. I love this character.
I love her too, and I hope we maybe get to see more of her in some capacity. Now, you worked with some amazing people on this project. You worked with Cameron Monaghan. You worked with Debra Wilson. Your director Tom Keegan, just to name a couple of people. I know there's a lot of people involved in this game, but I even saw one of your videos today where you were flipping into like a mattress, you and Cameron, and you were saying,
Yeah.
you two were trying to compete for the glory as usual. So like, what was it like to work with some of these incredible people on this project, and did it really feel like a close-knit family amongst the various motion capture scenes you did together and all that sort of stuff?
It truly did. I mean, man, I feel like people like say, "Oh, it was all wonderful," but really there was like all this tension or something. But I just hope like like everyone listening understands, like it was literally the feeling for me. It was like going to like recess. Like when you're in school and as a kid and like every subject is so boring until you get to recess and then you're like,
Woohoo!
"Woohoo!"
Time to play
Like
tag.
I'm gonna go to the playground and hang out with my friends that I don't have like home period with or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you're excited to go to work every day. That's really how I felt. The energy of the space that we created was tremendously supportive. Like, I mean, wow. Like unlike, I would say much more so than is like average for, any kind of work environment. Like it was just amazing. Tom, the director, he's a theater director. He's an actor. He's an actor's director. So he really did everything in his power. I mean, from the types of conversations we were having to the warm-ups that we would do before we started working. He really did everything he could to make the actor feel comfortable and safe to just play, to just try things. We had time to rehearse, which is such a gift that we so often don't get as actors. Um, and then, yeah, Cameron, he brings obviously tremendous amount of talent, and also an incredible intellect. Cameron is really smart and he really, really cares about the work. Like he's not somebody who's just like showing up, doing it, even just killing it and then going home. He's somebody who's like really thinking about it, like the pieces of it, and does it, is it coming alive as best as it could? So that was a cool energy to bring in as well. And then Debra she's like the veteran, she's done so many games, she's been around forever. She totally made me feel like almost like a little like under her wing, like I could talk to her about things and really supportive. And then that was really interesting because our relationship started to mimic Sarah and Trilla's.
Mm-hmm.
So that mentorship, that female friendship, that sisterhood, that the type of relationship that two women can have, I think is just really powerful. And all of those themes were kind of at play in our rehearsal spaces. But yeah, suffice it to say, like it was one of the best work environments I have ever had the pleasure of being in.
I would love to be a fly on the wall in that room. I mean, I can't imagine the kind of, like you're saying, collaboration and creative freedom that you're getting on the set. And that kind of leads into my next question. You started your acting career, at least according to IMDb, back in 2014. And this project's unique because it's a video game. It's not traditional in the sense that you're in front of a camera acting, and now you have all these dots on your face. You're doing ADR. You're getting your face scanned so that the character has the likeness of you. So
right.
How different is it for this kind of project? Like, how did that require you to perform differently than you might have been used to before? And what are some of the challenges with something like this?
Sure. Yeah, actually, that's incorrect. IMDb only lists TV and film. So those jobs maybe started somewhere around there. But before that, I've been acting for years on stage as a theater actress, which is important because mocap is almost a little bit closer to theater than it is to TV and film in a weird way. Mm-hmm. Because with mocap, it's really important that it's embodied, that your whole body is involved in the scene and what you're doing. Whereas in TV and film, it can actually be a problem if your whole body's involved in what you're doing. It's really important to find kind of powerful stillness in TV and film. So I think my theater background helped me a lot. Also, I did a lot of classical theater, like Shakespeare, and I know for sure all of that dialect work that I had done, the vocal training and vocal work that I've done for many, many, many years, and just the dexterity of being able to deliver, Shakespearean monologues or whatever it is. All of those aspects really came together in a way that I could never have predicted for this job.
Yeah.
So it was kind of special. It was one of those things where you were like, oh, okay, universe, got it.
It all
Like
leads up
you
to
were,
this.
yeah, like you were, the universe was cultivating and kind of starting to weave the fabric together long before I could have ever, gosh, I mean, years before I ever even auditioned for this. So there's that. And then the other piece in terms of what was different is like I think it took a lot of getting used to the head mounted camera.
Mm-hmm.
Because, those cameras, I posted a picture of it today on my Instagram.
Yeah, I saw that. It was awesome.
It's super cool. It's like this helmet, and then the thing juts out in front of your face like a few inches. I don't know, maybe
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5. And then there's a kind of like a clunky like camera like sitting there and like 5 inches in front of your face. So getting used to that, there were times when I wanted to get so into Cameron's face and like threaten him, and then our cameras would like bump together,
That's funny.
So, stuff like that. Just
Right.
the technical aspect just took some getting used to, but it's also just a delight to be learning a new skill,
Yeah. It's great to hear how your earlier theater experience, like you said, all led up to this one big moment for you. And I kind of wanted to hear a little bit about your past. So I got a two-pronged question here. So when did Star Wars step into your life? When did it kind of take a hold of you and help your imagination? And also, like, how long did you know you wanted to be an actress for? When did that start? Because you mentioned theater. So what did that progression look like for you?
Yeah, sure. That's such a great question. Goodness. Man, let's see. Star Wars probably took a hold of me around when I was like 5, I guess. I'm not sure
Mm-hmm.
like exactly, but it would have been watching like the original film with my dad, who is a huge lover of film. And we used to get so excited to like go to the neighborhood blockbuster on a Friday night and like
Mm-hmm.
rent a couple of movies, and like no, we were going to watch them throughout the weekend. Like that was our thing. So I think that's where my love of film started. And Star Wars, I mean, God, we all have that experience of like watching the film and our minds being blown as a kid and just being like, I just entered a different galaxy.
Yeah.
Like, what? I've never seen anything like this. Like, oh my goodness. So it grabbed a hold of me super, super young. Um, and then later, I think I started to recognize, a lot of nuances of why the franchise is so special. Like, like even now thinking about it, now that I'm a part of the franchise, I was like, my parents are immigrants from the Dominican Republic. I'm a first generation American. And boom, Star Wars was in our living room, grabbed a hold of us, didn't matter. Like Star Wars transcends
Yeah.
every race, religion, culture, politics, gender. It does not matter. Like
Yeah. It's
it's
universal.
universal. Yeah, and I just love that about this franchise, and it's one of the reasons I'm over the moon to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, with acting, I grew up watching the Oprah Winfrey Show because
Mm-hmm.
my mom was obsessed. So I had to sit and watch it with her every day, like 4 p.m. And we just like, I always say like Oprah helped raise me. Um, and she would have all these big celebrities on her show, like Denzel Washington and Julia Roberts. And
Yeah.
I'd watch it as a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old and be like, that seems great. I want to do that. Like, because they are the center of attention, which is cool. Obviously, as a child, you think that's cool. And then they were talking about like their humanitarian efforts that they were doing, building schools and digging wells and stuff. And I was like, I want to do that. That seems fun. Like help out the world and also get to be like fabulous. So that my little unsophisticated mind, that's how I figured, well, that's for me. And then I never changed my mind since.
It's so easy. I think your story is so unique because it's so easy to get enamored with some of the actors and actresses that we watch growing up, and just being so curious about what they do. And I think it's that curiosity that really sparks the drive and the motivation to do what you've been doing for so long, and it continues to pay off for you. And I'm so excited to see where something like a Star Wars really sends your career off into. So what are some of the other things that you're passionate about? You mentioned meditation, and I read on your website you like to do you like to write and you like poetry. Did you want to speak a little bit about some of those other interests that you have, and people might not know too much about?
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting. About 3 years ago, I started meditating. And so I just think it's no coincidence that I'm a part of Star Wars
It's the Jedi
because
way.
the yeah, like the meditation themes, and then also the idea of the Force.
Hmm.
Like in my meditative practice, we kind of we talk a lot about this kind of unified field of existence to which we are all connected, and that really there's actually only one of us, that we're kind of this this connected like living organism thing, and that this idea that we're separate of it is just kind of a delusion. So when I think about the Force, that's how I frame it in my mind.
Hmm.
I'm like, oh yeah, that thing, the Force is with you.
Right.
So yeah, but I love to write. I don't write professionally yet, but I hope to one day. um, and my main focus in life right now is acting. I also recently directed my first film,
Oh wow!
so I'm
Congratulations.
starting. Thank you. Yeah, like starting to put my toe into the water of of those kind of endeavors and learn those new skills. But I just recently booked and shot a recurring role on a new show. It's actually a reboot of an old show called Party of Five, on Freeform, on ABC's Freeform. So I've been,
Great.
yeah, I've been working on that. That's been incredible. I'm also right now in the middle of shooting a really cool role on Grey's Anatomy.
Awesome. It's a
So
lot of
yeah,
that's
things are
one
like,
of our favorite shows in the modern day.
yeah,
It's been on for so long.
it's a great one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really good at keeping busy. I also do a lot of voiceover. Obviously, for Star Wars is by far the most exciting thing I've ever done in my lifetime. But I'm a part of a couple different animated series on Disney, and I work with a couple of brands doing the voice for them. So yeah, it's kind of a hodgepodge.
You're keeping yourself busy, and I think that's, at least from what I've heard from some other people in the industry, that's kind of the thing you got to do is just to continue making a name for yourself, and being involved as much as possible, and even picking up some new skills along the way. So what have been from your perspective, like some of the challenges of being in the acting industry? Like what advice might you have for somebody who is an aspiring actor? Because I know there are definitely a couple people who are listeners that fit into that category.
Oh, cool. Hi guys. Hi fellow actors. The challenges. It's interesting. I have a very unique perspective on this, I think, compared to most. For me, everything changed when I started meditating. And it's interesting because I've always been this actress. Like, I've always been the same person, with this skill set and this voice and this. But for some reason, before I started meditating, I would just be auditioning. So, going through so much rejection and a lot of compare and despair, a lot of competing, a lot of internalizing. And it makes it so much more difficult. But then when I started learning about kind of the qualities of the thinking mind and how it is possible to kind of unhook and soften and kind of settle into something else that's also here, that's deeper than that. Um, allow those habits change, those habits of mind, like competing or comparing or thinking that if I get this job, then it means I'm good. Or if I did not get this job, then it means I wasn't good in the audition. Or if I can make it as an actress, that means that I'm, like worth it or
Mm-hmm.
worthy or something. Like all of these little like subconscious equations that are kind of kicking around in our heads, they are not helpful. And when I started to dissolve some of those through the power of presence, of awareness, then stuff started to really flow in my career, because then it's like you start going into the audition room and you're more present and you can be more you,
Mm-hmm.
and you're kind of less asking for something. Like it's less like, oh, like please, 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 I hope, and it's more just like, yeah, I'm here, what's up, whatever,
Right.
okay, bye. And that energy, there's the number one most attractive energy on the planet, I think, is
Yeah.
authenticity. It's just cool because it's rare, and because authenticity looks a little bit different for each and every one of us. So if I say authenticity and you think of like, oh, okay, that means being like real and like grounded and like confident and cool and not caring. Well, actually, that might not be what it looks like for you.
Right.
You have to find it for yourself. But whatever your authentic little brand of like strange you that is not needing and not asking for anything, it's like realizing that you're actually a source. You're not an empty cup that's going around asking to be filled. You're actually a source of water. You can fill other cups. That is a paradigm shift. And when you start to really get that, not just as a concept, but I mean really get it, like in your heart, your body, like really sit in that for a while, then life gets real interesting. Case in point, I'm the second sister.
Well, it's definitely working for you, and just I think what you're saying is really so powerful. And speaking to what you wrote on your website, you said on here, we are simply too vast to be reduced to a concept, and you mentioned compare and despair. So really just run with that authenticity and be who you truly are. I think is a great message, and don't try to be something you're not. But in regards to Jedi Fallen Order, what would you say is one of your biggest takeaways from this project? Like what are going to be some of those longing memories that you have of this work, and what do you hope the legacy is of the second sister in Star Wars and possibly in our world?
Oh my goodness, what a question. Wow. What a great question. Man, that you stumped me because there's so much coming to mind and to my heart. I'm just so overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
I really am so overwhelmed by like the the response that we've been getting. Also, regardless of the response, which by the way I was in no way expecting, like at all. But that, just I'm even overwhelmed still by the experience of what that was for me, like being in those rooms every day and rehearsing and making new friends and meeting new allies in this industry. And it was such a nourishing and empowering experience. So I hope that I can keep that with me, and just always reflect back on this project as an incredibly delightful time in my life. Um, and then for the legacy of the second sister and what the fans take from this, I hope they take from this that redemption is always possible. It's not too late.
Mm-hmm.
And to see what kind of chaos can ensue when we hold on too tightly to the stories we're telling ourselves about what happened in the past, and to see what freedom is available in letting those stories go and being born again in each moment to be new again. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see. I'm just taking a minute to just let it soak in because I'm very moved by that statement. And I think to another video game, Star Wars Battlefront 2, And in that game, in that story, Luke Skywalker has a conversation with a character and he says, it's about the choice to be better. And I think redemption is probably the most central theme of Star Wars. When you distill every single thing that's ever happened in the franchise down to a single point, it is redemption. And it is who we are now and who we can be tomorrow. And I think that sort of change that we see within characters in this universe is some of the most profound stories that we can relate back to ourselves.
Exactly. And I think that what we're touching on is the reason that this series of stories have touched the hearts and lives of millions of people for so many years and will continue to, because of what we're talking about. It's like the essence of who you are is, as a person and what's possible for you. It's very empowering for the fans and for me, for all of us.
Well, I have the widest smile on my face right now because I think that is a great way to close out here. So, Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on here on Friends of the Force. You are always a friend of the Force. You're always welcomed here to talk all about Jedi Fallen Order and whatever you'd like. But
okay,
to close this out, could you give our listeners an idea of, again, just what other projects you have coming up to keep an eye out for, and also where can they find you online to learn more about yourself and those projects?
Yes, absolutely. I will be recurring on the first season of Party of Five on ABC's Freeform in the role of Sully, which is a really cool, exciting role and project. It's actually a really special show with a lot of heart in it as well. I will also be in the next season of Grey's Anatomy. And you can find me on Instagram at Elizabeth A. Grullon. It's just Elizabeth A. Grullon. It's my name. And my website is www.elizabethgrullon.com. And I'll always post updates. I'm sharing so many of the comments and messages I've been getting about the Second Sister on there. And just really, honestly, it's like I'm basking in the love from the community. It's absolutely incredible.
Well, one thing I can say is once you get into this community, you are always a part of it. And us Star Wars fans are beyond thrilled to welcome you with open arms. So thank you for your work.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brad.
Thank you for your work on Jedi Fallen Order. So
yeah, thanks for having me.
So much fun having you. And have you played yet? Are you going to play this week?
I'm not great at the games. I'm better at making
it's a hard
them
one.
I'm not playing them. But yes, the answer is yes. I will absolutely be playing. It will take me like probably 1 year to complete because I'm just not like that skilled, but I'm so looking forward to it.
Well, exciting stuff. Again, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Brad. Have a great one.
Is this all of them?
Yes, Second Sister.
We seek a dangerous fugitive. This is no common anarchist, but a devotee of the treasonous Jedi Order. Failure to turn over this traitor will result in a charge of sedition. Turn yourself in, or everyone present shall face summary execution.
Thank you for listening to Friends of the Force. From a certain point of view, you can now play Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order on PS4, Xbox, and PC. As for the podcast, make sure to leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen, and follow us on Twitter at Friends of Force and Instagram at Friends of the Force. You can also join our Patreon at patreon.com/Friends of the Force. Thank you to our current patrons, Aldranian Rose, Neil Lowry, Rural Farm Boy, Chris from Kentucky, Michael Condon, and T. And we are also a part of the Star Wars Escape Pods network, promoting positivity and fandom. So that is all for this episode, and until next time, we're all ones with the Force, we're all friends of the Force, and may the Force be with you always.